Hey, welcome to the Junk Project. I'm your host, Michelle Hill, and today we have the awesome opportunity to be joined with our guest, Robert Nelson. Hey, Robert, how's it going?
It's going great and it's getting better, Michelle Hill. Thank you for having me on the Junk Project. Does that mean I'm junk? I don't know.
Heck no, you're not junk. No way. People are we like to joke with people and tell them, look, we don't take spouses. I would take your dogs, but my husband would not like that. So no, we don't take dogs. So anything like that. Nothing weird, you know. So we're good. No, just share with my audience about what you do and um, you know, how you like to work and the things that you're involved in and how can we help you?
Well, first of all, I want to give kudos to you for having the audacity and an initiative to do the things that you're doing in this industry. I had an opportunity to view one of your previous podcasts, and I saw the unique position that you're in, being one of the few female that are in this space, and you establishing a standard that can inspire other young people, other young ladies to believe it's possible to go move into a male-dominated industry and still thrive, not only just survive, but to thrive. And your personal determination and fortitude, because I've seen you in action, so I know you a firecracker. Your personal fortitude and determination is really inspiring, not just to me, but I'm quite sure to a lot of young people, a lot of women who would aspire to move into a business ownership in this space. So congratulations.
I appreciate that a lot because it was really funny. I went and saw my dad yesterday and he's like, I'm 51. He goes, how much longer you think you can do this? And I'm like, I don't know. I, I'm like, thanks, Dad. I have no idea how to answer this question, but you know, I love it. And I was just telling another customer because they reached out and said they appreciated our business. And I said, it's really hard for me to get out of the truck because I love talking with the customers. I just love everything about what I do. And it's very
Mhm.
difficult to put a crew in my place, not because they can't do the work, because I just truly enjoy being on the ground and in the front, on the front line of everything. And so I don't know what I'm going to do, but for now I'm just going to enjoy every day I got and work it.
Well, with that said, I'll tell you a little bit about myself, and I believe this may be able to speak to some of the things that you're going to do in your journey going forward. One of the things that I do is I teach sales and entrepreneurship to young people, and I've started probably over 3 decades ago doing this. I own a company called Youth Enterprise, and in essence, my vision is I see that young people have tremendous potential, and there are many times when they're not connected with the resources or the information or the individuals that can help them develop that potential. This all began with me. I'm from the streets of Chicago. So it began with me
Wow.
watching young people selling drugs on the street. And my thought was logically that if you can sell, let's get you a different kind of product, right? So
I
you can
love
sell it and
it.
not destroy you or the community.
Yeah.
But at the time, I didn't know how to sell. So I
Yeah.
began my search and my quest studying up under mentors like Paul J. Meyer, trying to understand how do you go about creating the personality that enables you to be successful in the space of sales. Paul Meyer ultimately introduced me to Og Mandino's work. Og Mandino, the author of the greatest salesman in the world. And I had a rare opportunity to co-author a book with him called The Greatest Sales Training in the World. And the reason for this, Michelle, was because I saw that the fundamental principles that Og was teaching are something that's applicable to anybody in any walk of life. And if they adopt those and integrate them into their personalities, they can be more successful in whatever space they're operating in. So logically speaking, I'm like, okay, rather than me trying to teach kids a bunch of complicated concepts, let me give them some basic principles, basic fundamentals to live by. And if they adopt these, then they can become successful in whatever space. But naturally, my vision is okay, I'm doing this for the purpose of building a bridge for the next generation. So even though I'm doing it, I studied up under people like Og Mandino, Paul Meyer, many others, Earl Nightingale, other people who actually were some of the founders of personal development and success processes. But I did it with the thought of, I want to apply what I've learned and then pass what I've learned onto that next generation so that they can proliferate, right? And spread it even farther and wider, because kind of like the concept of the gospel of Jesus Christ. He started with 12 people, right? But once they started living the life, having the impact, that proliferated. So ultimately what I see, and this is just prophetically as it relates to you, you're in a space right now where you're becoming familiar with all the things that are necessary in order to operate a business of your nature in that niche. Your expertise has become so valuable that ultimately you won't have to step back and allow others that maybe are younger or other people who can be supportive, who don't have the knowledge base that you've had, don't have the wealth of experience that you've had, but by virtue of your experience, you can empower them with the ability to be successful in those spaces. And that ultimately can become what we refer to as how you grow and scale your business, because you'll be bringing other people to the table as well. So I see, as far as your expertise and your skill set, that, yeah, sometimes you got to step back in order to grow up, because you got to make room, because all of us have potential. Each one of us made in the image of God have the equal potential, but sometimes we need to be given the opportunity. And that's really what I'm endeavoring to do for these young people. Give them the opportunity to explore their own divine creative potential. And I marvel at the things that they come up with. it never amazes me.
Young people are, I don't really think they get enough credit. I just don't. They are truly very talented when you're able to talk with them on, a one-to-one basis. You learn so much more about them than just categorizing them as, oh, they look like they're problem kids. There's so much more than that. I mean, I know this is minute, but I did a crossing guard job for junior high kids. And I was just always messing with them. But, I had other people complain about them all the time. Oh, they're horrible. They're this or that. I never had those problems with these kids. I talked different with them. And I never put them down. Everybody was sir and ma'am. And it didn't matter if you're 4 years old or 24 years old or 84 years old, it was just respect. And I try and teach that to people, is just basic common courtesy and respect goes so far, and especially with kids. It really does. It just doesn't take much. And I think it's so awesome that you're giving them some mentorship, because I too was, I wasn't really into selling drugs, but I did do a lot of drugs. And most of my life, up until I was 18, till I met my first late husband, I just thought I was a POS. And my family didn't think I'd make it to 18, much less 20, because I was shooting up drugs. So, and I had been from 12 to 18 locked up in girls' homes and rehabs, because my parents were trying to get me off drugs. And although none of it worked, I do appreciate their tenacity and their continuation of throwing money down the drain, trying to help me, because it was a lot of money, for these rehabs and these girls' homes. And that could have gone into something else. And thankfully they felt like I was important enough, to continue to help. But it was my late husband who got me off drugs. And all he said to me was, "You're worth more than that." That was it. And I quit cold turkey, and I've never touched him in, I don't know, 51, I don't know, 25 something years. I don't know. So I love it, because I want kids to understand they are worth more than that. They are worth so much more, and they don't see it, and so I love everything that you're doing. I think it's just amazing.
One of the exercises that we do when we first engage, and I actually teach in all of the schools within the Fort Worth Independent School District. This year, I'm actually moving into the Dallas Independent School District as well. And ultimately, I want this process to be something that's deployed nationwide. So I'm starting on the foundational basis, a couple of years back, I worked with Barack Obama's My Brother's Keeper initiative, and they actually have chapters, like 200 chapters nationwide. So ultimately, I want this to be spread. But one of the basic fundamental exercises that we begin with when we start the process, before we teach them any of the aspects of sales, marketing, or business, is helping them identify that value that they do possess. So we do this little exercise. And in this exercise, we have them identify what they categorize or how would they quantify being rich? What would constitute being wealthy, being rich, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so many of them come up with different illustrations, dollar amounts, or what have you. And then we move and shift that to, okay, if you own something that is of equal or greater value than this quantified amount that you constitute as being rich, whether it's $1 million or $10 million or $1 billion, whatever it is, if you own something of equal value to that, then does that not constitute you being rich? And most of them will consent that, yeah, that's true. And then we identify what they already possess as it relates to their personal self, just their life, their brain, their mind, their heart, their emotions, their capacity to think. And the value, they would not trade that for the monetary thing that they've identified as being rich. So which means they're already rich, right? So,
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
reminds me of a book that Bob Proctor did. He said, you were born rich. Now you need to understand how to make use of the resources that you've been gifted from birth. So that's kind of how we approach it going in the door, saying, if we can get them to become conscious of the fact that they already got a wealth of resources just within themselves, now we can start showing them ways and means by which, how do you take that value and contribute it to the world where you're enriching other people's lives and getting compensated in exchange for it? Is that pretty much that simple, right? Even though they have different avenues that they'll take. One of the things I wanted to ask you, and I think you may have answered this question in the context of what you said about your husband. You said that when he told you that you were worth more than that, it shifted something in your mind, shifted something in your whole personality.
Yeah.
And many times we have what I call these epiphany moments when we see something that makes us think differently.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So in anticipation of having this conversation with you about being all jumped up, the name of your company, and not being familiar with the industry, I am familiar with a couple of aspects of this, and that relates to one, I'm familiar with feng shui. I spent over 10 years selling in the furniture industry.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned this as a result of interacting with people that were designers, decorators, and what have you. And there's a certain aspect of clutter or decluttering that's essential to creating an equilibrium and a peace of mind so that you can function efficiently, right?
Right.
So the thought is that there's some things that you need to remove or move around in your space in order for you to maximize your potential. But I'm gonna take it a different step. There are many people who are in positions where they got things that they need to move around in their mind in order to get to a place where they can maximize their potential. And sometimes, because they don't teach this in school, it's difficult to understand, how do I go about decluttering my thinking? How do I go about cleaning up my perspective so that I can remove the disabilitating or limiting beliefs that are holding me back from my full potential? And there's some very clear processes to make that happen. And some of these things I've learned from some of the mentors that I've studied on it, but the thought is, before you can begin that process, you have to first become aware. You have to first become aware that there's something in the way, something holding you back. Something I heard you say on one of your other podcasts, you said that, you know, after your late husband passed away, you made the decision that you were not going to be dependent on welfare.
Yes.
And you went to the extent of getting multiple jobs to do whatever it took to create this liberty and this freedom for you. And that kind of determination doesn't happen passively. There's sometimes a defining moment or something, some experience that makes you say, okay, I have to shift something. Something has to change.
Yeah.
Because this is not the experience I want for my future. And then by you persevering to apply yourself, you start building in the habitual tendency to be the audacious person that you are today.
Yeah.
Right? That didn't happen overnight.
No.
Right?
No,
and it's still
didn't.
growing. Yeah.
Yes.
But I think that that's a very important part of a process that all people need to understand, as how do we de-junk or declutter ourselves, that which is holding us back. Can you speak to that?
Yeah. And you know, it's so difficult because when I was in junior high, my friends knew what they wanted to do, or so they thought, you know, what they wanted to do when they grew up. and I didn't. And so I thought there was something wrong with me because I was very sheltered. I was in a very dysfunctional family. And so there wasn't a lot of teaching of this stuff going on. And so I thought there was something wrong with me, that because I didn't know what I wanted to do. Right. And that's why when he said you're worth more than that, I it just hit, because I'm like, okay, it's okay that I don't have all the answers, because I thought I did. And when I was in my 20s, again, I was very, very sheltered. And he had asked me to take the car in to go get an oil change. I thought I had to know everything about this car, and I didn't know anything. I did not know I could go in and say, hey, I don't even have to know the make or model, right? Hey, I got a car out here. Can you come look at it? I need an oil change. Can you tell me what it's going to cost? I mean, I can be that vague and they can help me. I didn't know that. I went in there and said I couldn't explain it. I stood there and literally cried in front of everybody. And I was so embarrassed because I did not know how to talk. I did not know how to explain myself. And I was so embarrassed, I left, and I was
Mm,
crying, and I'm 20 and I
mm,
don't know how to ask for an oil change.
mm,
And so I have come a long, long way because I've learned to communicate. I don't know. I mean, my mom wasn't like this, but when I got married to my first husband, and I understand he was 20 years older. And when I got married to him, I said, I guess my job as your wife is to sit down, shut up, and do what I'm told. This is the only time he ever threatened to hit me. And he goes, you do that, I'll beat the crap out of you. And I'm like, oh, okay. He goes, no, that's not how this works. I want your opinion. And so God truly was watching me, because what if I had got with the wrong person on that?
mhm.
And so he taught me that, no, I want your opinion and I want your ideas and I want this. And what I've learned is, I struggle with bipolar and I do take medication for that. But I've also learned it's an attitude thing. I have to
Mm.
watch my attitude. I used to drive 18 wheelers, and I kid you not, this was before I got on medication. So it was very difficult. I was chasing people down, in the truck, into neighborhoods that I'm not supposed to drive a fuel truck into. I drove the gas trucks, right?
Mhm.
They're not allowed in neighborhoods. So, and I would chase people because I was mad. And I'm like, okay, this is out of control, way out of control. And I had to start working on my attitude. So, yes, the medication helps, but I had to also change my attitude and go, okay, um, this is not worth getting angry over. This is ridiculous. I do not like being an angry person. I do not like being depressed. And how can I fix this? And how can I change my attitude and focus on good things? And so everything, and it took years, for forgiving, that took a long time. And now, it's everything is so automatic. I don't even think about what I'm doing anymore. I just, it doesn't matter what you do. I'm go, okay, I forgive you. I'm done with it, because I'm not going to hold a grudge. I don't have time for that, you know.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I wanted
No,
to
you're
ask
good.
this question because I think there's a very poignant point that you're making. What were some of the initial tools or processes that you used in order to make this adjustment in your attitude and in your personality? Were there any strategies that you can recall that helped you start gaining a grip on that?
I'm very self-analytical. And so for instance, okay, I was tailgating, I was in my 18-wheeler tanker fuel truck, tailgating a guy in the right lane. I mean, if he farted, I would have ran him over. I'm so close to him and I'm so angry and I'm going, and then I just went, okay, wait a minute. Let's think about this situation here. Who is doing the right thing and who is doing the wrong thing? Okay, well, he's in the right lane. He's doing the right thing. So what is my, what can I do to fix this problem? I can either get over to the middle lane, or I can back off and quit being a, you know, a butthead. So I backed off, but I had to start asking myself these questions. And, you know, there were a few times that if I got mad in my vehicle or anywhere else, um, if I didn't like the situation, I didn't like the outcome, right? How could I always ask my questions, how could I have handled this better?
Mm,
And what are, I love to problem solve because I believe there's an answer for every problem, and it's not always the one I want. Backing off was not really the answer I was looking for, and getting over was not the other one either. I wanted him out of my way so I could stay in that lane, right? But that was obvious that he was going like 40 miles an hour. He could do it in the right lane, you know, he was in the correct lane to do it in. And it was me being rude and disrespectful to him. And
mm,
so that's how I would solve my problems, is because I don't like confrontations. I'm not a confrontational person. My parents argued a lot in public, and I don't like to argue in public.
mhm,
Or anything like that. And so it was, how can I solve this problem and have a happier outcome, right?
mhm.
Where the people are not mad too, because if my job is, okay, so I call getting saved closing the sale. So, and I am not a sales closer, okay? So I believe that my purpose in life, I believe sometimes it takes maybe, I don't know, 200 or 300 people to touch someone's life, right? So you have maybe 100 people planting that seed on that one person. Then you have another 100 people watering it, right? Then you have
Mhm,
another 100 people pruning it. So I really truly believe it takes hundreds of people to bring people to God. And
mhm,
how am I bringing people to God if I'm being disrespectful and rude and we're all mad and angry? I'm not
mhm.
doing it, right? And so I think life is so much more simpler than that. Um, and my husband gives me a hard time because he asked me a question the other day, and I'm like, you know, he always like, you're just like this, you know, like singing the circus song, do 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 do, you know. But really, I am, because um I choose to, my world is really, to me, it's very happy. I know what's going on outside in the real world. I know what's going on.
Mhm,
I can't fix that. I can fix my world. So my world is
mm,
pretty good. And because it's pretty good, I don't focus on, you know, I go to a lot of networking groups, and they're all like, well, I don't know how we're going to survive during this, and I don't know how we're going to do this. I don't have those thoughts because it's not an option. All right, I see other people thriving in this situation and making money, so you can't tell me it's not possible. The
mhm,
only thing I don't know is, okay, how to do it, you know, what can I do better? So that's what I'm trying to learn for me. But as far as, you know, people go, I believe my job is, I call it jacking with people. That's my purpose in life.
mm.
So I love to see people happy. And you know, and so like I'll hold the door open at Quick Trip, and I'll be like, hey man, there's a $20 door fee, and I'll get this, what, you know. Oh, no, I'm just kidding. You know, so I love to mess with people, and I love to see people laugh, and
Mhm,
that's that's what I want to see. And so I know, I know what's going on in the world. I don't have to focus on that. I focus on my butterflies and unicorns and puppies, because I can control that, and I
mhm.
can grow that. Um,
Right.
you know, and I can succeed and become financially successful, which is my goal. Um,
Mhm,
but you know, I just have to figure out what it is I need to do, and that's where I struggle, because I'm not, I've never had my own business. And
mhm,
I can tell you this, I've seen people in my industry shut down. I've seen them go bankrupt, and I've learned that, now I self-sabotaged for about 7 of the years, and I've only been in business 8. And so I learned a lot. And so, but that stunted the growth of my company. And that's why I don't have a crew yet after being in business 8 years, is because I did stupid things that cost me a lot of money and I wasn't able to grow the company. And I'm fine with that, because I learned from it.
Mhm.
And I look at it and go, okay, you know, you made your mistake, quit making the same one, and let's grow the company. And then, I forgot what I was going to say, but anyway, that's kind of how I dealt with my problems is, how can I find a solution to better handle it?
Mhm.
I don't like road rage. I don't, if you cut me off, I don't care. Um, I'm not going to get mad about it. No, no, I don't really like it, but you know,
But what I hear you saying is that a part of the process of making the adjustment is the first step is awareness. So when you start to become analytical of your own behavior, you developed an awareness of, okay, this is something out of order in terms of what you prefer, right? So
yeah,
you just took the time out to make an observation and become conscious of what was already there. Then you
yeah,
can start making the adjustments. Many times what I see people do, and this is not just young people, but older people as well, is that once we start this process of becoming consciously aware of what is out of sorts in our experience, sometimes it can reach a state of overwhelm. And I'm going to say this as it relates to your business, which is critical, right?
it is. Yeah,
When you reach a state of overwhelm and you see multitudinous things that you need to restructure or declutter, it can become paralyzing. So there was a strategy that I heard from Benjamin Franklin. He utilized this strategy in order to adjust his personality. So what he would do is he would take one personal quality or attribute that he wanted to integrate within his own character. And then he would monitor during the course of a week, or I believe it was a week or so, however long it was a certain period of time he would monitor in a journal saying, okay, this is the characteristics that I want to exhibit. This is what I'm doing, right? This may
hmm,
not be what I need to be doing, but he would mark off and indicate, okay, when am I implementing what I want in contrast to what behaviors I don't want? And as he started monitoring that on one attribute at a time, he would gradually adjust his personality. Now, I'm going to take that back to how it relates to your business, because there are many people that need to declutter.
hmm,
But if they look at the whole job at one time, it's like, I'm not doing that because it's like,
yeah,
it's too big. So, how about segment that out? Identify
yeah,
one room or one
yeah,
area that you want to work on, and then identify what things you can dispose of in that space, and gradually move progressively throughout the entire house to create the kind of an atmosphere. Now, when I speak of feng shui, that means that you create a certain type of isometric balance in your space that's conducive of peace, harmony, productivity, creativity. And
yeah,
people need that. And that's
yeah,
one of the greatest tools I use to sell furniture. It's like, okay, tell me what your personality is. Tell me what it is that you do and that you're interested in. And tell me what kind of things do you think could contribute or be conducive of you flourishing in that characteristic. Not to say I want to fit you into any box. I want to fit you into the box that fits for you, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
once they gave me some clarity about who they were, and I said, okay, well, based on what you say you desire, these are the things that would be resonate with you in that space. They
hmm,
should be organized in a way that just feels comfortable for you. So you create your own personal feng shui based on your personality and based on what it is that you're trying to create. And it's a powerful reality. It's truth.
yeah,
We are a part of all creation. So everything around us affects us in one way or the other. Sometimes people don't realize it, but just a cluttered environment can create chaos and anxiety that causes bad relationships. That's powerful, but it's true, right? So I
yeah,
really commend you for what you do. And I really appreciate, the insight that you shared with us about how your journey or your transition has taken place and the
yeah,
steps progressively that you've gone through to come from being an angry, rude person to actually backing up, looking at it in retrospect, developing this habit of forgiveness and develop it so much that it becomes like a reflex action now. You say you do it without thinking about it. That's
yeah,
powerful.
yeah. It is. And I want to go something back to what you said. I learned a lot. I remember when my first husband was disabled and his mom was disabled. And so I met them at, I was 18. My late husband was 38 when I met him, and he was disabled already, and his mom. And then we had our son like a year later, and I took care of him. And so in my 20s, you know, I'm taking care of these three people. But anyway, there was a point that I had to mow the yard. Okay. And I would keep putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. And all I would think about was how every day I had to go mow the yard. And every day I put it off, it was only all I thought about the next day. And it could go on for a week that I kept putting it off. But as soon as I mowed that yard, I never thought about it again. Right.
Mm.
And so it just went on to something you said, and I don't remember what you just said, but if you take care of the problem immediately, then you don't waste energy and time on something
Mhm.
that you know you're going to have to do anyway, right?
Mhm.
So if you can, and don't get me wrong, I still am working on this. This one is a work in progress for me because I've noticed I've slacked in this department a bit, and so I've got to get back on the ball about it. Where I continue to put things off, and I've noticed all I do is think about it and stress over it and worry about it. And if I would just do it, there's no more thought to it, right? Until it's
Mhm.
time for it to be done again, a
Mhm.
week later or 2 weeks later or whatever. And so that's something I wanted to share with you is, when people procrastinate, it does cause more stress, more anxiety, more problems. And if you, as opposed to if you just do it, you'd be done with it and you don't think about it. And now
Right.
you don't have all this wasted time and energy on something so stupid, you know?
Right. So, to your point, one of the things I wanted to reference is that many people don't understand the stages of the learning process, and because of that, they get caught in the middle, and they ultimately get paralyzed as well. But there are four stages to this process. One is unconscious incompetence, which means you don't know, and you don't even know what you don't know. Right? You're not clear on
Yeah.
what needs to get done. Right?
Yeah.
So you're oblivious for the most part.
Yeah.
But if you pay attention and you become mindful or start developing awareness like you did, you reach a stage of conscious incompetence.
Hmm.
You can't get it done, but at least you know what needs to get done. So you may
Yeah.
not be proficient, but at least now you're aware that you need to make some adjustments. And you don't automatically transition into this perfect individual. It requires effort,
Hmm.
repeated effort. So once you reach conscious, unconscious, conscious incompetence, if you continue to persevere, you'll ultimately reach a stage of what we refer to as conscious competence, which means you can get it done. You have to think about it, but you
Yeah.
can actually get it done with a little effort.
Yeah.
If you continue to persevere, you ultimately reach that stage that you're at now with your forgiveness, which is unconscious competence, which
Hmm.
means you can do it and you don't even have to think about it, right? But people get paralyzed because they want to be at unconscious competence, but they're not close enough to that stage to just jump over there, right? They have
Yeah.
to go through the stages and they have to
Yeah.
repeat a practice over and over again until it becomes a part of their personality, part of their characteristic, part of their subconscious awareness.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think self-improvement is just always going to be a constant work in progress, because you're going to go, I've discovered some things that I'm doing that I don't really like. And I'm like, it's not that they're bad, they're just kind of stupid, right? But they're habits. So
Mhm.
now they just need to be broken and remade into something that's not a time waster, you know.
Mm.
So it's fascinating. I know people say you shouldn't self-analyze, but I'm very self-analytical, and that is how I figure out my problems and solve them. Is you know how can I how could I've resolved this problem with nobody being angry?
Mm.
Without how could I've resolved the problem with better results, happier results? Maybe not like ecstatic and everybody's just, oh yeah, we love you, but that's not what I'm looking for. I'm just looking for, better than angry and frustrated.
Mhm.
So again, I hear people that are always talking about problems with other people, and I'm like, I don't have those problems, and if I do, I am so oblivious to them. I don't really realize they're problems, or I don't feel angry. So I love that, because I don't, and it's really funny. My husband now, uh, he came home with a haircut, and I said, "Hey man, I like your haircut." And he goes, "Yeah, that was like 2 weeks ago." So I was like, "Damn, sorry." But I was trying to explain to him it wasn't an exact excuse. I don't look at the outside of people. So I'm not
Mm,
attentive to that. I I look at the inside. I don't care what you look like on the outside. That's not what's important to me. What's important to me is the inside. And so, no, I may not recognize that you got your hair done, or you have a new dress on, or whatever. I might not see that at all. What I do see is people as people. I see how you are. I mean, I'm not God, don't get me wrong. I'm not that good. but but I just see how people are in general. And I just it's so funny. I get on Nextdoor app or whatever, and people are complaining about people, and I'm like, when you get people one to one, they're not like that.
mm,
And I think people just get categorized in a group that they don't belong in,
mm,
because maybe of how they acted. I had a situation a week ago where a guy cut me off in traffic, and we went to the landfill together, and his dump trailer didn't work, and I have a jump box which will make his work. And instead of being angry that he cut me off, I was able to help him. And it
mm,
shocked him because he knew what he did. He knew he cut me off, and there's a little road rage going on
mm,
his part. But I didn't confront him with that. I didn't bring it up, and I'm not going to. And then he's like, "What do I owe you?" And I'm like, "Dude, you don't owe me anything. How about a handshake? You owe me a handshake." Okay. And then I'm a dog fanatic. So I'm really bad. Like, dogs are with squirrels, I am with dogs. I mean, it's concerning sometimes. So I looked in his truck, and I'm like, "Oh my God, you have a dog?" So I got selfies with his dog, right?
mm.
And I posted this, and I posted a video on Facebook, but it wasn't to brag. It was to say, hey, instead of getting mad at people, because what if somebody in his family just died, right? Or attempted suicide or whatever. You don't know what's going on in other people's
Right,
lives.
right.
I believe people are assholes because they don't know how to deal with their problems.
Mm,
And sometimes I am an asshole too. And so I am not going to judge somebody else on something that I do as well.
mhm.
And so that's where I am very forgiving and things like that, because um, I don't want to be judged as I judge others, and I got enough on my plate. I think God's going to confront me on, and so I don't need to add any more than what's necessary.
So
So
let me ask you a question, Michelle, as it
yeah,
relates to what you see. Based on where you see yourself going in the future with your business, what does that vision look like? What is the desired outcome or intention that you would like to see happen with your enterprise?
that's really a good question, and I struggle with that vision. And I'll tell you why I struggle with the vision. Because when I was with my first husband, we had invented a parking brake for shopping carts. And I put every ounce of my being into building these carts. My husband was able to set up our garage as an assembly line. I was in my 20s, so I'm in my prime at this point. And it was hurting my back dealing with this metal, that I would go out with an extension cord and a heating pad wrapped around my back and continue to build these parking brakes by hand. And I built like 2,000 of them. And we sold them to two stores, to Minyard. I don't know if you're familiar with Minyard.
Yeah.
Okay. And so we sold them to two Minyard stores. But the point was, I put everything, because I thought, we're going to get off of welfare. We're going to help poor people, because that's what he wanted to do, and we're going to be rich, and we're not going to have to live with his mom anymore. We'll be able to get our own house. And then he died. And I was so shocked and hurt and angry. And I thought everything that I thought was supposed to be from this break, right? This was going to change our lives. And God took his life and said, no, that I don't have the brakes. I mean, I have the prototype, but no, I'm not selling it. So after that, I've realized I don't have that vision. As far as in general, I could say I would love to help. Like, I've had guys who have been homeless working with me, and I would love to be able to see them have a car and a house. And they're great people. I've had so many great people work for me, and even though they were homeless and I couldn't get them out of that situation because I just didn't have enough work, that's where I get frustrated. That, I guess, would probably be what I'd love to see, is to see others prevail. What did I say it right? From my business,
Yeah.
right? But the vision in general is just not a strong vision, because there's so many avenues I can go with this business as well. But I mean, as in general, I would love to see, I think I would provide a pretty fun culture for my guys. And the one thing, like, for instance, that I would do if I had a building where we actually, had our business at, I would always make sure that they would have food, right? So I'd always have like sandwich meat and sandwiches. That way, like when I worked at Starbucks, you got one free coffee and you got one free meal a day, because they wanted to make sure that no matter what, as an employee, you had that one meal. And I always thought that was just the coolest thing, to be honest with you. And so I would do that for my guys. So there's a lot of things I've learned from all these little things that I would like to provide for my guys and or girls, and a fun environment to mentally and emotionally grow in, and just be better people, and either they can continue growing with the company, or go on their own and do something and grow that way. The people I've had work for me have been pretty loyal. The only problem is I just can't offer consistent work, and so that's why they can't stay. So that gets frustrating, because I have a guy that works with me and he stays on call, and he's homeless as well. And honestly, I would love to see him have, for lack of better words, so excuse the language here, fuck you money. I would love to see him have it, and I'd love to see him have a car and a house, and knowing that he doesn't have to stay in his tent anymore. I would love that. Uh-oh, did we lose you? Uh-oh. Hang on just a minute.